Chloe Dawson was just another temporary nurse at Bayside Medical Institute, going about her morning rounds like any other day. When she first noticed the yellow stains on an elderly black woman's hospital gown and the sharp, acrid smell that filled the room, it seemed like a simple accident, the kind that happens all too often in busy hospitals. But as she helped the frightened patient change her soiled clothes, something about Lila Franklin's trembling hands and downcast eyes told a different story. What Chloe would uncover in the following hours would shake her faith in the medical profession to its core. Before we dive into this shocking story that will make you think twice about who's really treating patients in our hospitals, comment below where you're watching from today. And if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. Chloe Dawson took a deep breath as she stood outside the imposing facade of Bayside Medical Institute. The early morning sun cast long shadows across the parking lot, and a cool breeze rustled through her neatly tied brown hair. At 25 years old, Chloe was still relatively new to nursing, and the prospect of working another shift at this large, bustling hospital made her stomach churn with nervous anticipation. She had been called in to help on what was sure to be a hectic Friday. Though she had worked a few shifts here before, Bayside wasn't her usual hospital. The sheer scale of the place and the constant flow of patients still felt overwhelming. But Chloe was determined to rise to the challenge and perform her duties with professionalism and care. As she pushed through the main entrance, Chloe was immediately swept up in the controlled chaos of the hospital. Doctors and nurses rushed past, their shoes squeaking on the polished floors. The air was thick with the sharp scent of disinfectant, punctuated by beeping monitors and the low murmur of voices. Chloe made her way to the locker room, weaving through the crowded corridors with practiced ease. Once inside, she changed into her red nursing uniform, smoothing out any wrinkles before tying her hair back into a simple, professional bun. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, taking another steadying breath. "You can do this," she whispered to herself. "They need your help, and you're good at what you do." As she left the locker room, Chloe's mind drifted to her previous shifts at Bayside. While she was confident in her nursing skills, the fast-paced environment here still left her feeling slightly off balance. The constant influx of patients, the rapid-fire decisions, the need to be alert and ready for anything at a moment's notice. It was exhilarating but also exhausting. Shaking off her doubts, Chloe reminded herself that she was here to help. Her professionalism and dedication would see her through, no matter how hectic things got. She squared her shoulders and headed to the nurse's station to check her assignment for the day. The head nurse handed Chloe a patient file. "You'll be caring for Lila Franklin today," she explained. "Room 312. She's 86. Recovering from a heart attack. Stable, but needs regular monitoring and assistance." Chloe nodded, flipping through the file as she walked toward Lila's room. According to the notes, Lila was making steady progress but still required careful attention. As she approached room 312, Chloe felt a growing sense of responsibility. This woman's well-being was in her hands, and she was determined to provide the best care possible. Chloe knocked gently on the door before entering Lila's room. The sight that greeted her made her heart ache with sympathy. Lila Franklin was a frail black woman, her thin frame nearly swallowed up by the hospital bed. Her hands shook slightly as she tried to push herself up to a sitting position. "Good morning, Mrs. Franklin," Chloe said warmly, moving to Lila's bedside. "I'm Chloe, and I'll be your nurse for the weekend. How are you feeling today?" Lila's face lit up with a grateful smile, though Chloe could see the weariness in her eyes. "Oh, bless you, dear," Lila said, her voice soft and slightly raspy. "I'm doing all right, I suppose. Just tired of being cooped up in this bed." As Chloe began her initial assessment, checking Lila's vitals and making notes in her chart, she was struck by how lonely the elderly woman seemed. Lila asked Chloe questions about herself, seeming genuinely interested in getting to know her nurse. It was clear that she craved human interaction and kindness. "You're so gentle, dear," Lila commented as Chloe helped her take her morning medication. "Some of the other nurses, they're in such a rush, but you take your time. I appreciate that." Chloe felt a lump form in her throat. She wondered how often Lila received visitors, how much genuine care and attention she got in her daily life. "It's my pleasure, Mrs. Franklin," she replied. "I want to make sure you're comfortable and well taken care of." As she went about her duties, wiping Lila's face and hands, adjusting her pillows, and helping her eat breakfast, Chloe found herself growing fond of the elderly woman. Lila's gratitude for even the smallest kindnesses was touching, and her attempts at conversation, despite her obvious fatigue, spoke of a deep loneliness. "I'll be back to check on you later, Mrs. Franklin," Chloe promised as she prepared to leave the room. "Is there anything else you need before I go?" Lila shook her head, still smiling. "No, dear. You've been so kind already. Thank you." As Chloe left the room, she felt a mix of emotions. She was glad to have brightened Lila's morning, but saddened by the thought of the hardships this woman must have faced in her long life. She made a mental note to spend a little extra time with Lila during her shifts, knowing that sometimes a friendly face and a listening ear could be as healing as any medicine. The morning passed in a blur of activity for Chloe. She checked on her other patients, administered medications, changed dressings, and coordinated with doctors on treatment plans. Despite the hectic pace, her thoughts kept drifting back to Lila, wondering how the elderly woman was faring. As Chloe was updating a patient chart at the nurse's station, a sharp beeping sound cut through the ambient noise of the hospital. Her head snapped up, eyes immediately going to the board that displayed patient room alerts. Lila's room number was flashing red. Without hesitation, Chloe dropped what she was doing and rushed down the hallway. Her heart raced as she approached room 312, her mind cycling through possible scenarios. Had Lila fallen? Was she having chest pains? Or was it something more benign, like a call for assistance to use the restroom? Chloe pushed open the door, ready to spring into action. But what greeted her was not what she expected at all. The first thing that hit her was the smell, a sharp, acrid odor that made her nose wrinkle involuntarily. As her eyes adjusted to the dimmer light of the room, she saw Lila lying in bed, looking distressed. The white sheets and Lila's hospital gown were stained with a yellowish liquid. Chloe's gaze fell on a blue hospital urine bottle tipped over on the bed next to Lila. The pieces started to come together in Chloe's mind, but something still felt off about the situation. "Mrs. Franklin," Chloe said gently, approaching the bed. "What happened? Are you all right?" Lila didn't respond immediately. Her eyes were downcast, and she seemed to be struggling to find words. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity to Chloe, who was trying to make sense of the scene before her. Finally, Lila spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "The doctor did this." Chloe blinked. Sure, she must have misheard. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Franklin. Did you say the doctor? Did he accidentally spill the bottle?" Lila nodded slowly but didn't offer any further explanation. The look in her eyes, a mixture of shame, fear, and something else Chloe couldn't quite place, sent a chill down the nurse's spine. Something wasn't right here, but Chloe couldn't quite put her finger on what. "I'm so sorry this happened, Mrs. Franklin," Chloe said, trying to keep her voice calm and reassuring despite her growing unease. "Let's get you cleaned up, shall we? I'll change the sheets and help you into some fresh clothes." As Chloe went about cleaning up the mess and helping Lila change, her mind was racing. Why would a doctor be handling a urine bottle in the first place? That was typically a nurse's job. And if it had been an accident, why hadn't the doctor called for assistance to clean it up? Why leave Lila sitting in soiled sheets? Lila remained unusually quiet throughout the process, her earlier warmth replaced by a distant sadness. Chloe tried to engage her in conversation, but Lila responded only with short, noncommittal answers. Before leaving the room, Chloe paused at the door. "Mrs. Franklin, are you sure you're all right? Is there anything else you want to tell me about what happened?" Lila looked up, meeting Chloe's eyes for a brief moment before looking away again. "No, dear. Thank you for your help." As Chloe left the room, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story than a simple accident. The image of Lila sitting in those soiled clothes with that look of